panelists will be defining what that is in a moment, and also we'll be focusing on the business side of it. So what we're going to do is we have a hybrid model of those to my left. Our panelists will be describing things around the business, and then to my left, we will have panelists who are going to talk about the industry, and for those who are not based on new and define that in a moment. So again, for those who are watching us live online, we continue to request that you be engaged. If you are very interested for either the site or the channel, please close the question there and maybe I'll see the video on the Facebook page. We do have the comment section, and that comment section is very good for that question. I will show you can engage with us. And engagement means you're going to make a comment based on what the person is saying. We'll be happy to take the comment and later on we can write all the comments and write them and maybe get that for us. That makes sense. Right? Avoid it. Welcome to my panelists here. We have a distinguished group of panelists here who are ready to go. And we're going to talk about what is part of the industry. So I'm going to ask my panelists here to introduce themselves, who you are, what you do, and then we'll get started.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Washira. I am here from Washington, D.C., formerly of the World Bank, and now with Wire, mobile bank solutions for immigrants and minorities in the United States.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Wanjiro, and I am based in California, formerly the state of California. I am a part of the Kudzik Investment Company, which is the Kenya-USA Diaspora Investment Company, to talk to you about how we can help.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Test, test, test. There it is. Good afternoon, everyone. No, there it is. I am Doug McCullough. I'm CEO of a company called Color Coded Labs that helps underserved and underrepresented adults get into the software development industry. We are a boot camp that trains talent to prepare people for software development. I'm also the Chief Information Officer of the city of Dublin, Ohio. It's just outside of Columbus, Ohio, and I'm very involved in community development, economic development, which is led by technology development.
Okay. Thank you. At the fintech side, I'm going to turn to my left, and by the way, we have a lot of operations notes from yesterday. My goal is getting after this problem factors, the permission of the OBC, and I'm going to have others to help me with operation, as I also mentor him to take this role going forward. So if you see numbers, please bear with me as introduce himself and his team.
Can you hear me? Mm-hmm. Am I on? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, main moderator. My name is Alex Karundu. For the whole conference, I think I'm the only hustler, the real hustler. I come in with a lot of business, organic business development in Texas, where I've done trucking, logistics, and warehousing for a long time. And I'm supposed to be moderating this afternoon with Professor Wamwara, but we decided to hybrid this panel because of time compression, and so amongst the distinguished ladies here, and I'll let them to introduce themselves.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Professor Wakiro Wamwara, and yes, I was supposed to moderate with Alex, but I'm very happy to just chill or maybe just talk. And I'm a professor of marketing at Wright State University, where I teach international business, consumer behavior and strategy, courses. So I'm more from the academic side. But I'm here at OVC, invited by the Kenya Embassy, specifically by the ambassador, to come and speak because I recently published a book on doing business in Kenya. And my fellow panelists encouraged me to bring it with me, so I have it here. It's available on Routledge as well as also on Amazon, and I have copies for sale. But looking forward to the discussions, and I'll pass it on to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nyambura Rohio Wabogo. I am based in Washington, better known as Seattle. I actually own a company called Ciliana Consulting. I'm a greater hustler. I believe in hustling. So I will talk about how you can hustle both in the U.S. and also internationally. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Nyambura. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Professor Wamala. And by the way, you did microphone. And what? Oh, you turned that on. Okay. Okay. Thank you. I was just appreciating. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Professor Wamala. Thank you, Nyambura. And I was notice that Nyambura is a person who's been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and we'll be. So we'll be asking her to face the camera all the time because she's always behind the scenes driving pretty much everything that is happening here. But today we want to make sure that she's straight to the camera. With that said, then I want to turn to my left and we'll be talking about the fintech. And by the way, let's talk about this. What is fintech? I have no idea what that is. If you could help us, there's so many people here who probably don't understand what it is. If you could help us, please.
Yeah, it means different things to different people, but essentially a financial product or a financial service that can be reduced to a technology, maybe cutting out some of the other institutions. We're finding that we can create things that software can do, which could be an extraordinary opportunity in Africa, particularly East Africa, where there may have been a loss of trust in some institutions, such as banks, government, insurance companies, and things like that, which I'm not saying that that's justified, but people may have a greater confidence if they are trusting these devices, which we've all become addicted to, in order to do transactions that we trust. Some parts of fintech are done with blockchain, but it doesn't have to be done that way. But using cryptocurrency or just other types of software in order to do transactions, it's extremely important from the United States to Africa because of questions of remittances and how do we get value and dollars and money transferred from our businesses or our work to people at home or investments that we wish to make, including in real estate and other items. That would be a working definition, I would say.
Well put. Working in definition of that. I want to stick with you for a moment, Doug, if you could. How important is that to the East African community, based on what you know?
I would say it's very, and I'm not from Kenya, but I heard that number, 60 years from independence. That's not a huge amount of time. And so what we have in East Africa is the opportunity to leapfrog, to bypass hundreds of years of development in other types of banking or financial institutions, many of which around the world have become corrupt or slow or inefficient, and we find in East Africa the opportunity to move past a lot of that development to the next evolution of financial services and products, which can be extremely valuable. Just bypass the years of inefficiency, and that's where we want to get to, is higher efficiency. One other thing is that the success of East Africa, much of it is going to come from the diaspora, and communicating and coordinating between the diaspora and the rest of East Africa should take place over technologies. That's the most efficient, cost-effective way of moving money around the world at this point. Let's not go back to old banking models that we don't have to. We are here in the modern future. Let's take advantage of the new technologies that are here today.
And as we know, we've seen examples of how moving money using phones, in the example, a great story of M-Pesa and Safaricom. And so we know that we can leverage that in other ways, not just simply creating models that we can utilize. So for example, even as we work together and interact, as we have seen in our case, we have a society, we have at least 2,000 members working together, and we've been able to build a financial base with 860 active members to build a approximately 3.5 million base. And I'll talk a little about the endeavor we have how we manage that to, in fact, turn into these technologies and go forward.
Okay, very good. I'm going to ask David, that's a good experience, the same question, David, from your experience. What do you think are some of the challenges the fintech industry is facing in the East African region?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Well, I think good question. Maybe perhaps is demystifying the subject. I think that would be the most important thing, and I think Doug gave us a very good definition. So when people hear fintech, the first thing that goes is, what is that? And as Doug mentioned, so fintech is just an acronym for financial technology, and that is essentially any business or company that uses technology to modify, automate, or enhance financial services as they relate to businesses or consumers. That same acronym is used in other areas: health tech, health technologies, agri-tech, agriculture technologies, anybody who's using technology to modify a particular service. So for us, when it comes particularly to fintech, it applies more to financial services, and more specifically, particularly in the United States, to banking services and how money moves. But that's just a small part of it. It could also go to blockchain. It could go to NFTs, non-fungible tokens. It could go to other particular aspects. But specifically for East Africa, I think East Africa has been the vanguard when it comes to mobile money, largely because of M-Pesa. So we are the trendsetters rather than the followers there. However, we still face significant challenges, particularly when it comes to accessing normal banking services. You think of the prevalence of M-Pesa on our platform and how much it has done for the country, but think in tandem just how far behind the banking industry in Kenya lags behind technology. I mean, it's appalling to where you are, on the one hand, you're the global leader when it comes to mobile movement of money, but on the other hand, you're lag behind largely when it comes to financial technologies in the banking platform. There are a lot of reasons beyond that. A good number of it could be related to the regulation, the mobile money regulation, or even how financial technologies companies are satisfied. In Kenya, they're still doing that on a very old traditional structure that was passed in 2009, but we're in 2023 and we haven't revisited the legislation of how you certify a financial technology company.
Okay, that's good. Before I get to Alex here in a moment.
There's some sleeping giants. One of them is Cellulant. I don't know if you've heard of Cellulant. They're a multi-million-dollar industry, company, actually $473 million in revenue as of last year. They're one of the juggernauts. They exist within 18 countries. If you bought a ringtone when they were being able to do so on Safaricom much earlier in the 2007, 2009, it was usually done by Cellulant, and then they moved to payment services. So that's one. There are others like Flutterwave, who are Nigerian but working in Kenya as well. There is TerraPay, there is SasaPay. There is a significant aspect of it. And of course, the big juggernaut in the room is M-Pesa, particularly on the Safaricom side.
Okay, excellent. So
all right, thank you. Can you hear me? As you can tell, we have two distinct panels here. One is dealing with the product of what these make. Once we make the money, we can go to fintech and figure out how to do some of these for better, whatever it is. So I got a question for all of us, and if you get this answer, then you're in the mood. I'm going to say a small narrative, and then I'm going to ask the question. An investor went around somewhere in the world, and he has sent two people with him to go study a demographic of a certain area, and were planning to set up a company that was producing shoes. They went around the whole village, the whole location. There was no one wearing a pair of shoes. So they submit the report, and they said, two reports. One said there was no one wearing shoes. I don't see any opportunity there. And the other one said there was no one wearing shoes, but I see a lot of opportunity. Where do you think that village was? Anybody with an idea? Somebody said Madhokoini? Madhokoini village? Anybody else? And to narrow you down, it was in Kenya, so you better be accurate.
Yeah, he was right.
No, that was Rimuru. You know why? Anybody ever heard about Bara shoes? The Bara shoes did not come there because a lot of people in Rimuru were a product of wearing shoes. It's because they did not. That brings us to where we're supposed to. How do you identify a business opportunity? And I'm going to turn that to Nyambura to give us a nutshell of how do you see opportunity, how do you go for it? So over to you.
Thank you very much. Amazing start of that conversation. I didn't introduce my company's name for a reason. I wanted to say how I saw opportunity and created my company called Ciliana. I saw it as an opportunity because I started the business with a mind frame of I just want to do business between here and Kenya. Then all of a sudden, the George Floyd story happened. And that's when there was opportunity. The opportunities of businesses being identified as minority-based industries. So, has there anybody in this, basically I want to ask who has a small business within our crowd here? Okay. So if you have registered your business, Karen, I'm going to pick you. What's your business and what's the name?
EGT Consulting.
So EGT Consulting. Have you certified your business as a minority-based enterprise? That is one thing that can give you more opportunity. When you see an opportunity like the butter company, so you go for it. I formed an organization that helps businesses such as yours to certify and also to apply for grants, and also I put you through the process of consultation in understanding how do I apply for an RFP, how do I go through the process of getting a good contract within the federal, between the local and state governments. That is an opportunity that we all have not trended on, and that's what we're going to discuss today as small businesses. How do we start? We start by registering in the proper way. A lot of us are starting businesses just from our houses. We don't register. We don't comply with what is required. So I would like to say that if you want to be in a small business, you have to think that you're going to grow and grow into wire pay. So when you begin day one, set up your business right. Write your business proposal. Understand what is my mission, what is my vision, what is my plan. So I'm going to stop it from there and pass it on.
Wow, that is already tackling some of the issues that we had ahead, because we were about to talk about putting up a business plan. Because the moment you identify a need, there's a lot of people make a mistake of trying to get money, and money is never an issue. You can do anything to get money, but you need to do something planful to solve a problem. Money is secondary, but still we have what we call investment money that you need to put in that business. And I think I'm going to ask Professor Amara to tell us what are sources of putting up, or what can you do to put, besides putting the business plan, how do you go for money? Which institutions, what do you want to grow that business organically? How do you what are formulas and factors to identify source of money? And maybe while you're still there, you could also talk, because of time, we could also be talking about factors of looking for partners or employment, people that you're going to put in, what training do you need to do to them to carry in the vision that you've carried?
All right, thank you very much. I think we're off to a great start. The story that you gave, as well as also, what Nyambura talks about in terms of identifying, an opportunity. I think any business, anybody who starts a business, if the business is going to be successful, it's usually solving a problem, right? Everybody says that you first solve a problem and then you can be, you can be successful. So often, most people, you identify the problem, and as Nyambura has highlighted, that it's important to register the company, properly, that often the average small business, person doesn't have a business plan until the point at which you're going out to look for money, right? To look for funding, and somebody's asking you for a business plan. I think in this crowd, we don't have to define, what should be in a business plan, but clearly, if you have a problem that you're trying to solve, you do know who the target market is going to be. You have the customer that you're very clear about, who you're going to serve. Now, often, most people will start with their own, right? You use your own resources. Often people will go to family and friends, and then once you exhaust those, then that's when you're starting to look for money in banks. Now the new model, particularly connected with what we're talking about here, fintech, people are crowdfunding. There's opportunities like that. You could have angel investors. So I believe if you have a really good idea, that as Alex has said, the problem is not really money. The problem is really having the idea and being able to solve a particular problem. As far as the kinds of people that you need, I think they're obviously hiring laws and so on, but the average small business will oftentimes start out, you're on your own, and as you begin to grow, that's when you will start building and hiring people. And I think since you have done so much of this, Alex, I will ask you the question, as you would have been moderator, and ask you to talk about that part of hiring. So over to you.
Wow, the question has come to haunt me back, but before I hand over to the fintech team, I think that's a critical area of our thinking or setting up process. For my case, what I've done in the last 20 years in logistic solution in this country, and if you look at the US continental, one of the fundamentals of this market is transportation is very key. They're not very well linked with intermodal. Obviously, air freight becomes quite expensive. It's not an obvious, easy solution to most of the businesses because of profit margins. So trucking becomes, or has been, one of the major area of opportunity in this country. And there are reasons why most of the foreigners, I'm picking that from my own experience, when you get people from Africa, part of Africa and Asia, you find a lot of men kind of finding opportunity in that logistic area because, one, culturally, you are not inhibited by a language barrier. You don't have to talk to a truck. If you're driving, all you need is GPS. You don't have to speak English. Even though the law may require you to, you can deliver from one point to the other without you necessarily engaging anyone. You also don't have a limitations of, for those that have cultural issues on other opportunities, and especially in health, a lot of men are not very friendly in healthcare. Those of us from our part of the world can attest to that. And across our hiring, we found a lot of men trying to run away from baby caring, home issues. You'll be surprised, very fundamental issues, but they may look little. For us, we identify those as opportunity where you give people a chance to do what they like best and earning a lot of money. But like Professor Wamara said, you also have to look at discipline and the character of the people that you're hiring. They have to be, understand the product or understand what they have to have some sense of fidelity to the product you're producing. So beside you only, trying to solve a problem, you must have a way of retention. Because once you hire, any knowledge that people acquire from your product, if you don't keep them, if you don't sustain them, they are likely to go and add value to other people who may not necessarily be fidelity to your product. So you need to have ways and means of training the same people, adding value to them before you even think about social or corporate responsibility. But for the meantime, let me give it back to our moderator for FinTech team.
Okay. Thank you. My regular job is I'm a business professor, so not moderation, and I agree with what Professor Amala was saying, and I always tell my graduate students, teach MBA programs, the students struggle to understand the meaning of business. Business is not there to make money. Business is there to serve a purpose in society. Making money or profits is a byproduct of solving a problem in society. Once you understand that, then you can go into the ideas that Professor Amala talked about, have an idea, and then from that idea, have a plan, execute that plan, and in the process of execution, continuous evaluation. That's the only way business can work. But my job for today is to do moderation, and that turns me to the fintech and maybe ask this question. What do you think? What do you think the fintech, the financial technology, as you defined it, is very important in the banking industry? And in your response, could you please, David, be very specific to the East African region?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for that. And I would be remiss if I did not mention to the audience that fintech and SMEs and small business are not mutually exclusive. Wire is a small business. We started off with 4 people who are unpaid, and now we have 55 staff. That particular path of growth over the last 4 years, we went through every single part that Professor mentioned in terms of where do you access credit, how do you raise. A great number of you here are our investors. We did angel investments, what she has mentioned. So these aspects are not disparate. We start off in the same place, but more exactly to your question, why do I think fintech, or rather the question that has been asked is why is fintech the future of banking? And perhaps that's clear for me coming from a financial technology company and just briefly telling you our story. We started Wire to solve a specific need. And what was that need? That need was for us as individuals when it came to moving money, particularly across borders, back home to Kenya. So we started off in the remittances. And once we looked at the remittances more cleanly, we realized that the average Kenyan immigrant or African immigrant only sends 5 to 10% of their income back home in remittances. The natural question was, what happens to the remaining 85 to 19%? How is that spent in the countries where they live and work? The United States in this particular case. And that we realized that everybody was undergoing the same problems that we had undergone as F1 students trying to set up bank accounts, as small business owners trying to access lines of funding, as my mom trying to get a mortgage. All this were challenges that immigrants underwent in this particular country. And so we did a pivot and we started looking at financial inclusion for minorities and particularly immigrants. And so we grew in that particular aspect, and banking was already there. We were not bringing anything new to banking. However, banking was not addressing the specific need for me as an immigrant when it came to accessing my financial services. And that's how Wire was born to what it is today, to where we are a mobile bank focused on the immigrant need. And what is that immigrant need? That is, how do you access your money? How do you spend your money? Is the bank sensitive to how you earn income and how you choose to spend it? So for us, that fits very well to the East Africa community because the remittances are going there. But the previous panels here kept talking about investment flows and how to move those aspects of investments. Very good question. But you can't move investments through the same medium or module that you're using for remittances. Remittances will go to pay school fees and some of the things. They're low dollar items. They may sound large at $4 billion, but how are they being sent? They're being sent $100 at a time, $200 at a time. That is not how you buy a building. That's not how you buy a business in Kenya. That's not how you move a truckload of goods. You need to send a little bit more in volume. And so we came to address that particular problem. So there was an aspect of banking in this country, but also in Kenya, that needed a plug of financial technologies, and we came to solve that particular aspect. To where today, and I encourage all of you, you can try it, Waya, W-A-Y-A, just go to the App Store, Google Play or iPhone, download it, try it out, and you can see the very answer to this particular question. How are we solving banking challenges through financial technologies? It should take you about 3 to 5 minutes if you're in the United States to open up that bank account, and simply you have your checking aspect. That is a solution that prior to this, for those of us who have gone to Bank of America or to Chase or to Truist or to any of the other bank, that process usually take 1 to 2 hours. You have to drive to the bank, you have to take your IDs, they ask you all these particular questions. Where's your EIN? What's your social security number? We can just pull that directly from the state because that is in the public domain and utilize that to open your account. So that's one of the ways that we're solving these issues. And that's one of the ways that fintech is influencing banking.
Okay. Thank you. Excellent analysis, by the way. Appreciate it. It says a lot about who we are as a diaspora community. So I'm going to go to David 2. I do have 2 Davids here. David is the one close to me is David 1, and then the next David is David 2. David, let's talk about this, about the diaspora community, right? How do you think the diaspora community can help?
Give them just a few seconds. Don't change it. Just give them a few seconds.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, to you, David, too.
So, thank you for the question.
I knew you needed to respond to Dr. Professor Wamala's points, but just finish it and then you can respond.
Thank you, because there were a couple of things I want to know, and I'll certainly add to one of the things that Dr. Wamala was sharing and raising. As I shared, the Kenya USA Diaspora SACCO in the Kenya USA Diaspora SACCO Investment Company is a subsidiary company of the Kenya USA Diaspora SACCO. And as you know, we have a model that has been true and tried in Kenya, and that is a SACCO model. Now, what we are advocating, and I'll just ask, how many of you actually send money, okay? How many of you actually do send money to Kenya? You already have, we've heard time and time again the need for investments, the need for bonds, the need for money that would support your activities. We came here simply to ask you something simple. If you took all of your $4 billion monies that you send, your remittances, and you send it through one bank, a bank that you actually control, what do you think you are capable of doing? If you, in fact, and I'm talking about you, the diaspora, actually control that bank. How would you make that money available? What would you do with it? What are the programs you would support? And certainly, how would you actually support the agenda of your people? We are inviting you to actually join us to actually do that. Is actually open Diaspora Bank, bank that is owned and controlled by you, that you can actually set up bonds. You can actually have you folks deciding how it is you want to make money available to your cohorts. That bank, we've talked about fintech, we've talked about it being an e-bank. What if that bank is wherever you are, whether in Europe, whether in China, whether you're here in the US, and you can actually borrow money from that bank for your mortgage, for your loan, using your money, that you can then also then goes on. And I want you to really quickly think about what the cycle is when the raindrop comes. It drops, it goes in condensation, it evaporates and cycles back in again. I want you to think of that money that way before that money gets to your government and the people in Kenya. And you can certainly make that money available to those people. But you're doing that before it gets there, right? And you're in control of it. So when you have a chance later, you can actually come out and then we can scan our scan code, so you can please share the word, join us in working together. And certainly, as David has shared, the many mechanisms and vehicles to send the funds from, and certainly that would be one way to actually interact with the bank. But I was going to go back to the concept where you're asking, how can we raise funds for what it is we do? That's money you have. We're not asking you to find new monies. We're simply asking you to do something. Change the way you're sending, the way you direct it through. Very simple. We're not asking more. just direct it there, and of course it's centralized, and then you do more with it. But certainly it helps provide a vehicle and a means for us to help ourselves with what we have, and certainly build and leverage the vehicle that David and his team has built also for getting that money to that particular location. And it's going to be an e-bank. So that's one way we can actually certainly help ourselves and not necessarily be going out there to ask for other people to give us money.
Well, but I want to move to Alex in a moment, but when I hear from Douglas, if you could contribute to that.
Yeah, just another aspect of that again, and another business model. I'm going to raise up something I've heard of called Fleri. I don't know if anyone else has heard of that. F-L-E-R-I, Fleri. Entrepreneur out of Ohio who noticed with the remittances a lot of money going home for health care. And in this country, we would think nothing of buying an insurance product that costs us a few dollars a month, and then we have a big health expense. It is covered, it is insured. Whereas many people are sending money home for a big health event that costs thousands of dollars and don't have an insurance product that could easily be paid for in the United States and utilized somewhere else. So this is a common thing for many immigrant communities. And so this is an innovation, a business idea, a concept that can be done in the United States, but the benefit goes back home so that someone else can utilize an insurance product. And why don't we do that already? It's because we didn't establish the insurance industry, the banking industry, the remittance concept to benefit people who have to move money back and forth between countries. We established it for other reasons. And so I find that to be an interesting fintech type of opportunity. InsurTech is what they would call that. But this is a different way of thinking where we're going to now create companies or business models or banking models that now are going to have to rely on technology. But why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you establish insurance in this country and utilization somewhere else, or vice versa? And that's how we have to think about the different transactions that we are depending on at this point.
Thank you. And I'm going to thank you, Doug. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Dave 1. Thank you, Dave 2. Thank you. So with that, then I'm going to turn on to
Thank you, FinTech team. Are we on?
Yes.
Professor Diamu, can hear you more. Okay, very good. Now I can. Thank you. There is a gentleman called Washiri. Is he around? He stepped out. And the reason I singled out that young man, because we're going to talk about, and we have one of our ladies here who is very, very good in, she's done a book, Doing Business in Kenya, Opportunity Challenges. The next item or the next topic we want to talk about is branding. What distinguishes you or your product versus others who have similar product? If you look at where you're seated, you're probably looking at a couple of items, either a plate, could be a paper plate, could be a glass of whatever it is. All of them are serving equal purposes, but they are not the same. Why the difference? So I invite Professor Amora again to talk about the branding part.
Thank you very much. I think branding is one of the most important things that one can do when forming the company. And I'll maybe start off with a friend of mine who is a professor at the University of Chicago traveled to Ghana. And when she went to Ghana, she said she was shocked to see that people had brand names like Jesus is my Lord mechanic shop, or Bible verses as as the full brand name. And she ended up doing some research, about that, about those, those brands. And the reason she was doing this is a brand should be able to communicate often what you do. It should be easy to pronounce. For example, we have Wire here, we have Optiven, we have AMG that you can just, say very easily. The brand should really, communicate that. When I teach my marketing students, I always ask them questions such as, if I say 2 men and a truck, right? We all know to move, you just need 2 guys and a truck. We talk about a brand name being short. It doesn't always have to be. There are some brands that are a complete sentence. I was started. I can't believe it's not butter, right?
Yes.
That is a complete sentence. And these guys are telling you in the brand promise that it's so good, you wouldn't believe that it's not butter, right? So we need, as you're thinking about the brand name, the brand has to be able to communicate that. There are certain aspects of the brands. The Nike brand, we know there's the swoosh, there's the brand colors, the McDonald's colors. There are some brands like Starbucks and other big brands. If we go to Kenya, you said butter, everybody here, it's a brand that we are all very familiar. One of the rule of thumb, of course, is that the brand has to mean, something. I have a company, and mine is called Power Consulting, and that is PAWA. One, because it's easy to pronounce, and it's easy to build the brand promise from there, that with the consulting opportunities, with the marketing, we're going to give you the power for your company to go and do whatever it is that you do. If we consult for you, that we give the brand, the power. So there's so many aspects of what we can talk about: the brand colors, the name, whether it should be simple, should it communicate. But the one thing that I can say is the most important is a brand name should be a brand that you can pivot, to other opportunities that we are talking about. For example, Wire, right now we know it as fintech, but if there was an opportunity in construction or an opportunity to provide whatever service, it's just Wire and then whatever it is. The brand itself is such that you can pivot it and be able to enter, into other spaces. We had George Washuri here talking about, the way he's branded, himself. The George Washuri mentorship program and so on. And I'll end with the American movie Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry has done an amazing job of branding. And when he first started, he talks about, people said, how can you call it Tyler Perry this? Tyler Perry's Madea does this. But he said, why is it that we have, Disney? Walt Disney and so on. And so he used his name and branded and has been very, very effective. So I'll pass it on. And I know that she has a very good brand story of why her brand is called what it is.
Amazing, amazing. Those that are over 40, if you be below 40 and you have this answer, I'll be shocked. There was one company that had a branding. Benson, if you know it, I'll give you something if you have that answer. It used to be Smooth All the Way. If you know what that was, I got something for you. Smooth all the way.
I have the answer.
No, don't say it. Now, talking of which, because we're talking about branding, a few weeks ago, one of our East African presidents went to Rwanda and he said 50 by 100 are also here. And that was very amazing. All of a sudden, we realized that the issue of buying small piece of land is a national issue. And so branding is very critical. It captures the mood of conference and sometimes can be a national debate. While I'm on it, we remember once, a while ago, we had a president in this country called President Reagan, and he's remembered as the father of conservative movement. But one time he said, government is a problem. And he was talking about business. He was talking about the economy. When the government comes and pokes in too much, it can hinder private sector from growth. But at the same time, and I'm going to pull in Nyambura to talk about that, there's a question of compliance. You have an obligation as a company for tax compliance. How do you prepare yourself? How do you measure yourself? How do you do reporting? Because at the end of the day, you do need the authorities, or you do need to work with authorities to meet the requirements of of your growth. You have an obligation for tax compliance because I guess taxes are critical, but overtaxing could also be dangerous to growth. Over to you, Nyambura.
Thank you. As small businesses, when we start, we get the first check, and we get very, very excited, and we call it revenue. No, it's you need to pay the taxman. The IRS requires that you have an EIN number when you're registering your company, so that's the first thing. I always recommend to have a CPA in your retainer every month so that they can look into all your compliances. And all your compliances nowadays include SOC. Which means the Sarbanes-Oxley laws have to be complied upon. You can't be the person who's doing the accounts receivable and accounts payable. Somebody has to manage both ends, and then there's that person who overlooks everything. You have both sales taxes, you have income taxes. If you are going to employ people, I encourage 1099. Even to yourself as a small business, so that when you file your taxes, you file them separately. You do a K1 for your business, and then you do a 1099 for yourself, and then you will be in compliance. So work with your CPAs. They'll help you still make money, but you got to be compliant from the very get-go. Beyond that, there is now what, for instance, in the fintech world, you have to comply with a lot of laws in terms of how you transfer your data. The data has to be safe. You have to also be compliant with a lot of regulations. I worked for Microsoft for years, and all I did was compliance. So there is a lot of things that goes behind the scenes when you see Safaricom doing a magnificent job. They do a lot of analysis behind that scenes, and regulation is very tight. So I can only imagine what the fintech world, when they're starting a business, are going through. So maybe this is a good question for the fintech people.
Almost an automatic transition, so we're going to go back straight to you.
That would transition to the last question for the team, but just to underscore that the business world today is comprised of two sections of the customer base. There is a digital.
Thank you. Thank you. That's definitely a good question, and we are yoked with compliance and regulatory requirements. It's I don't want to use the word absurd, but it's incredible, which there's a very good reason for it, and we can side chat on that very well a little bit. As you all well know, SVB, Signature, and First Republic Bank collapsed. One this week, the other 2 months ago. That came with its own spar of regulations that we had to adhere to in terms of not only how the movement of money works and how it affects our also underlying business, but also to protect your dollars. But to your more specific to your question, what's the future of fintech? Maybe I should ask. The appropriate question would be what's the future of technology, particularly in this space? Because as I mentioned earlier on, fintech is just how technology relates to financial technology. This answer could also be the case for agriculture technologies, health technologies. Fintech is also undergoing a significant change, just like any other aspect. There is this new thing called AI that has come in there. And for example, for us, I will tell you, for us, somebody asked me earlier on, where does your customer service team sit? I said, well, a traditional business may be running this with 40 people. We're able to do it with 3. Why are we able to do it with 3? It's simply because we use artificial intelligence. I don't need to be physically answering a question of how to reset your password. I can let an AI bot do that, and it saves me the time to answer a question that only a human being can answer. And so for us, if you come into Wire, a vast majority of what is being done by artificial intelligence, largely because it is saving us a significant amount of time, but also we looked ahead of the curve and we said, hey, this is an area that we can invest in. So we are early adopters, and I know there are a lot of things that come with, questioning early adoption of technology, but we look at the positive aspect of it. And from fintech, I'll tell you on a personal front, for me, I see it revolutionizing the way we think of investments, particularly as a Kenyan. For a lot of us here, we think of investments in probably a couple of traditional ways. Times are changing, and even on the tangible assets, we have to think of the growth and the future of those investments that way. Let me just use my company as an example. If you had come in Wire 4 years ago when we did the first call for announcements, when we were valued at $1 million US, you would have made 30x returns, because right now we are valued at $30 million. So for those of us who invested $10,000 4 years ago are now sitting on 10,000 times 30. You can't get those type of returns in land, unfortunately. Nothing against the people selling land. I'm just making a statement. In 4 years, you can't. The only close places you can get those type of returns is probably in your own education. Education is probably one of the ones that will give you higher return on investments than in technology. Now, for the people who are doing land and all these other aspects, the ones who are able to bridge technological advancements into it, that's the future. That's where we're going. So I'm asking you to be an early adopter when it comes to technology and use it as a tool to solve problems. We started Wire as a tool to solve a specific problem that we were undergoing. That was a key word as our moderator aspect. The making money part was secondary, and we're still growing. So I'll pass it on to the rest of my colleagues.
Sure. Yes, thank you, and thank you for the comments about compliance. For me, what fintech represents, and in terms of technology, and easing our lives, right? If I don't know whether any of you have ever done your taxes or use like TurboTax and HR, and you actually walk through that application, it asks you questions. Do you have this? Do you have a daughter? Do you have a child? And you respond, right? How many jobs are you doing, right? And all it does in the background is take those and translate those into the tax form. And when it all gets said and done, you have this wonderful tax form that's completed, that's beyond the requirements. We have heard presentations. I think there was the food security, and there was a gentleman who was talking about an application. You go in and you add stuff as you go along each day. It's all on the phone. I also have a friend in Calvin who created an application that folks go in and do all their business items, and it's all on phone and compliance. So my future trend. Why wouldn't that technology? I don't know, not necessarily that I care about every single piece of where the tax law complies. How about if that technology had it built in all the way, and that in fact I comply with the laws of both where I originated or where I'm doing business. So that for me is a very useful fintech, the way that I can see fintech working. But again, I'll come back to real quick that much of this requires investment, it requires support, and I'm going to come back again to the fact that we can help ourselves. We have the knowledge and expertise. We certainly can have the financial base to do that, to build into the fintechs, not only the fintechs, but in the various aspects of it. And again, what I would say is that please reach out to friends, and it's by working together, right? It's a unity that gets us there together and helps us. And again, by even as we said that this is available through the electronic environment, either in the form of an e-bank or combining the technologies for that purpose. So that's how I would see the fintech piece working for us.
Yeah, I would just say a future trend is, I still think that crowdsourcing is a future trend, where small amounts of people or large amounts of people can put in small amounts of money to fund something that needs to be done at the time. We heard earlier about the food security, food farming sustainability, where a farmer may have a crop and they stand to be quite profitable with that crop. But the amount of time it takes for that crop to generate that profit and it get returned to them actually eats into the profit, so they may wind up below where they started. In this country, we would have a bridge loan or a financial product that could easily, or maybe not so easily, move people through the challenges and ups and downs of that particular industry or others like that. But banks are not going to fund smaller farmers. They're not going to make your financial life easier. But the diaspora will fund that. These are things that everyone, if 1,000 people put in $5, you could sustain a number of people and get a return from that. So this is not necessarily charity or anything, or just giving money. It's a matter of getting a return. It may not be 30x, but a lot of the entrepreneurial, bank loans, mortgages, different things that you can get returns on. They may be small returns for small investments. This is a situation where we are not losing money necessarily. We are investing in places that did not have banking relationships that allowed them to run the kind of businesses that sustain the economy. At the end of the day, we will have different, newer financial products that can serve people who are poorly served by banks, poorly served by financial institutions, insurance companies. They're just not getting access to the ideal kinds of products, and FinTech is going to help us customize financial services and products directed towards people, whether in the diaspora or from the diaspora back home. I think that's going to be the future.
Good, thank you.
I actually don't think we have 5 minutes. We're going to try to run out. One of the things that we have talked about what we do. I'll ask my panel to maybe say what we don't, because anywhere there is no rules, then it will become a house of Babel. But before I do that, there was a question about smooth all the way, and I know there was a gentleman with the answer. Just to wind up the curiosity, it was this SM, sweet menthol. It was a cigarette. I don't prescribe that you smoke, but it was a cigarette that used to be for affordable cigarette. It was called SM, smooth all the way. I don't know whether it was a smoke that was smooth, whatever it was. But so the do's and don'ts, we've talked about the do's. Run up 1 minute each, and then we hand over the mic. The don'ts.
I'm going to basically twist that question, and I'm going to call it a positive way of looking at things. What I have realized is that we all talked about, and majority of the organizations that have attended this event are financial institutions, or majority of them are in, I want to say, it's not infrastructure, but mostly the proximity point is what kind of organization? Real estate. Yeah. So a lot of us are in the real estate industries. So what I would want to challenge all of us, because I am a person who likes to challenge my people, is that I've seen so many opportunities of whereby the U.S. government, both locally and in the federal state, they are requiring that organization must include 15% of minority-based enterprises. Where do you see yourself? You need to plug in there. Alex, you're in logistics. You take a partner such as Kanska, and they want all the trucks for all their projects to be included as 15%. You do the math. I want people to look at those opportunities. I am asking you, because we can't beat those things. There are so many, and I want people to just dive in there and get those opportunities. If you do not know how, I'll walk you through the process. Call me.
Amazing.
Wow, thank you. And maybe I might add, you've talked about minority. There's also women. I know that Ambassador Gashero always says, if you're a woman minority and you don't have a business, you're sitting on a gold mine. That I was just going to, add to that. For me, I think often as a marketer, the one thing that I like to emphasize is that we all, market. We are all marketers. Anytime you're selling, anytime you have anything, we market ourselves when we're looking for jobs. We market ideas. We market companies. We market causes. We even champion ideas within our own families. So I want to focus more on the do rather than the don't, and to say that we are all marketers, and get comfortable really speaking about your product, marketing yourself, because in the end, we are all marketers, and if we don't let other people know the good thing that we have to be able to sell our products and our services. And maybe reiterate, yesterday we talked a little bit about the inclusion of women. I think it's really important. In this room, even as we've looked at the panels here, we have not had, we've had women representation, but we can certainly, do better. So I would encourage all of you who own, small businesses in your hiring, even without compliance issues. I think it is the right thing to do to be able to have a diversity of voices within your respective companies.
Amazing, amazing. As we wind up, be ambitious, but try and be measured on growth. One of the things that a lot of companies has gone down for, especially real estate, is when you're too ambitious and you cannot manage your growth. It can be counterproductive. Coming to the tail end of our panel, I want to invite all of us to East African Business Network in Dallas, where we have similar experiences that are ongoing in this conference, in this expo. Mark your calendar. October, the first weekend of October, that's from October 5th, I think, Benson? 11th to 14th. You noted yesterday, even the ambassador called the Texas team, and we are here to prove ourselves that we not only want to grow organically in Texas, we want to distribute this knowledge across the country. So thank you, OVC, for what you're doing. One of the last aspect of our conversation was SCRs, social corporate responsibilities. All businesses that are sponsoring us today are doing great because they are giving back to the organizations that have helped them grow. So it's an egg and a chicken. The more we support one another, the more we support OVC and similar organizations as business opportunity. As business organizations, the more opportunity for growth that we're going to be. Thank you guys for listening. I'll give back to Professor.
Okay. Thank you very much, my panelists. Just a quick note on this one. We're talking about the do's and don'ts. I'm going to tweak it a little bit when talking about the don'ts in business. When you do your SWOT analysis, you have the strengths, you have the weaknesses, you have opportunities and threats. Whatever you see as a weakness actually is an area of improvement. So whatever professors and when we're talking about in any business, just always pay attention to areas of weakness. In part is because as society evolves and you acquire new knowledge, what happens over time, you adjust your organization to fit the changing times. And that's what we say even to students, you're not in school to learn, you're in school to learn and learn and to continue to relearn so that you fit in a particular environment, and that's part of what you're doing here. So, but my job for today was to be a moderator. With that said, not a professor. I've been in class on Monday with my students. I want to thank my panelists. I'm going to start from the far left. Douglas, thank you very kindly. Great contribution. We appreciate you. Hopefully you continue to be part of the OFC community. Big hand as I go around with the team. And my David too, thank you. Very soft-spoken but very intelligent. Thank you as well. here, David, number one, thank you. Very articulate. This is my digital team, the digital natives, right? Very smart with technology. Appreciate you as well. I know everybody here and everybody watching from home appreciate you. And then to my right, Alex, thank you so very much. You've done great in the private sector, great contributor to, as a partner to OVC. We appreciate you. By the way, Professor Amala teaches marketing, as I do, so we're both professors. We teach marketing, and I'm sure going forward we might be partnering on working on some projects together. Last but not least, well, Nyambura, she's been hiding behind the scenes. I'm sure Dr. Shuri, Dr. Ongaki will acknowledge that she is the person who's been driving pretty much everything that has been happening here. So in as much as you're hiding from behind the scenes, Nyambura, I want you to know that we appreciate you. Thank you very kindly. With that said, please everybody join me in giving the panelists a big round of applause as we take the last photo. That's it from us. Photo, and then Dr. Ngaki.
So just we hold up the phones. Let the lady here in the front make the picture quick because we are running out of time. We don't want any interruption. The next guest should get ready to go just after the photo. And then we will have, they will go like about 30 minutes, and then the other one will be 30 minutes and will be done. Don't forget we have a gala tonight, which starts shortly because they will need this room for about 45 minutes to get the dinner going. And then we also have the evening. So we have a big event, so don't leave. We have until 10 tonight. So there's going, you know, that's when the good stuff is going to even be. If you think you have seen some stuff, wait until you see it a lot. That's going to go on tonight.
My camera. Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right, let's get going. Let's get going. Mary?
Yeah.
You always want us to take 30 minutes?
I think it will be much easier to...
That's going to be totally up to you. You're the boss.
Absolutely, 30 minutes, so that we can get to the other panel.
You should have everybody else...
Yeah.
I never do a panel unless I have my clock with me.
Do you want
Robert,
us to
it's
guide
nice meeting you. I'm going to be in touch with you about what we can do for Kenya and your education program.
Absolutely.
We can do all your STEM and STEAM.
I like that.
And STEAM.
STEAM.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. That's adding the arts.
Yes.
Mary?
Okay. Yeah, she's with me.
Okay. Yeah, I know.
Somebody's phone.
Somebody's phone. Somebody's phone.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. I'm done with that.
Mary, we've lost all of our audience.